Hi guys, today we're going to be talking about the immune system, and these are um, the unit objectives. We're going to be looking at humoral and cell-mediated immunity, looking at the lymphocytes, the type of reactions, the effect on antigens. We're going to differentiate among the four types of hypersensitivity reactions, looking at those immunologic mechanisms, and then what types of treatments. That'll be more in the classroom. So when we look at the immune response, it is the defense. It is the protection against any invaders. It creates the cells that are ready to attack. It directs the macrophages, which are the mature white blood cells, and supplements the inflammatory response. We have homeostasis, which is more of those damaged cells, and they are digested. And so when we're going to be looking at cancers, something is wrong with the immune system that doesn't destroy those cellular substances. And then the surveillance. The white blood cells, they go around, they have special receptors on them that recognize foreign cells, and they can either destroy them or they can cause the immune response to occur. The antigen is basically what starts the whole process. When we look at the types of immune response, we have the innate. This is present at birth. It's the first line of defense against our pathogens. It's non-specific in the response. The neutrophils and monocytes are our primary white blood cells involved. It's not antigen specific, so it doesn't need to find an antigen to destroy it. When we look at the acquired, there's two different types. There's the active natural, and this occurs when we get an invasion of that foreign body and the development of antigens. So our white blood cells, they come in contact, and it's this whole huge response. I don't want you to know that whole huge response, and the dendritic cells make the MP-T3 and etc. Just know that it comes in contact with the antigen, develops a specific antibody to it, and so the next time we get that that microorganism, we're going to have a response to it. When we look at the active acquired, this may be from diseases, or it can be artificially when we get immunizations. I know last semester we talked about live vaccines and dead vaccines, or the live attenuated, and that's our artificial immunization, or our artificial immune response, where we get the injection of the antigen. Our body makes the antibodies to that specific antigen, and now we have artificial immunization, or artificial immunity, that only stays in our system for 6 to 8 months. When we look at passive, we can get passive immune response. This is babies. Babies get their natural immunity from their mother's breast milk. So when babies are born, we want them to nurse to get those gamma globulins into their system. We talked a little bit about artificial passive. This is where our patients who are exposed to hepatitis A, they get gamma globulin that is specific to hepatitis A, So it gives us artificial immunity. And that immunity is short-lived because the person doesn't synthesize those antibodies, and so they won't retain the memory cells. When we look at some other things about the immune system, we have our central. Comes from the bone marrow. Our lymphocytes are produced in the bone marrow and they migrate to the peripheral organs. The thymus is going to differentiate and mature those T lymphocytes. And so this is essential for a cell-mediated immune response. We also have the peripheral, our lymph nodes, our spleen, our tonsils, gut, genitalia, and bronchial and skin. And these are where they're important for filtering for foreign antigens from the blood. So if you look at the peripheral, this is what's going to, it's kind of like how an antigen can get into our body. We can eat it, we can drink it, we can breathe it in, we can get it on our skin. When we look at the types of the immune cells, we have the dendritic. These make up a system of cells that are important to the immune system. They have atypical shape. They are dendritic in nature. They're found in many places. They're found on the skin and the body. They capture the antigen at the site of contact. And they transport it to the beta cells, and the beta cells are they develop into the plasma cells. There's the plasma cells develop the memory. So our dendritic cells, they're going to present it to our beta cells. They're going to make the memory of and the antibody towards it, and they secrete the immunoglobulins. The T lymphocytes are found in the spleen and the lymph nodes, and the T lymphocytes are specific to an antigen. The T lymphocytes are produced by the bone marrow, and when they're mature, they leave the thymus. They fight mostly in the spleen and lymph nodes. They react to specifically to virus, fungi, and parasites. When we look at the types of T cells, we have the cytotoxic. These are the T killer cells. They bind and destroy They're stimulated by the beta cells. They divide or the B cells. They mature and secrete immunoglobulin. We have the helper cells. The helper cells are the CD4s. They're going to give us an assessment status of the competency of the immune system. So when we look at HIV, we look at the helper T cells to see what is the CD4 load. The suppressor T cells reduce the production of immunoglobulin against certain antigens and prevent overproduction. Next, we have the cytokines. The cytokines are released by the T helper cells. They act as the messenger. Between the different cell types, they instruct the cells to alter their proliferation, differentiation. There's more than 100 different type of cytokines. These are just the big ones. We have our interleukins, and our interleukins we have interleukin 1 and interleukin 2. These promote proliferation of the the B cells. They activate the T cells and the non-killers. We have the interferons, and the interferons, like I said, there's a lot of different interleukins. These natural defense. The interferons help the body build the defense and attack tumors and viruses. It's not directly antiviral, but it produces an antiviral effect. The tumor necrosing factors is a pro-inflammatory mediator. It activates the macrophages and granulocytes. They promote an immune and inflammatory response. They kill the tumor cells. We have the colony stimulating factors. The colony stimulating factors work at growth regulating factors in the hematopoietic cells in the bone marrow. And then we have erythropoietin, which we've heard before when it came to kidney disease. Erythropoietin is produced by the kidney, and it works on the bone marrow to build up red blood cells. So when we look at cell-mediated versus humoral is we get the pathogen, enters the body, it'll encounter a B cell that is specific for the antigen located on the bacterial cell wall. The monocyte will, and macrophages will come and try and eat it. The B cell recognizes the antigen, and when the antigen comes in contact with the cell surface receptor, the B cell becomes activated. Most B cells are differentiated into plasma cells. The plasma cell secretes the immunoglobulin, and then some of those B cells are also memory cells. The cell-mediated is the cell type and factors involved in cell-mediated immunity. The cells involved are the T cells, macrophages, and the non-killer cells. It provides immunity against the pathogen that survives inside the cell. It works against fungal infections, rejection of transplanted tissue, and contact hypersensitivity reactions. The immunoglobulins are produced by the B cells in response to that antigen. The IgM is going to be produced first. It circulates in the blood and accounts for about 10% of all of the human immunoglobulin. They produce the IgM first. The beta cells or B cells will produce IgM first in response. IgE is an allergic response. It accounts for no more than 0.001% of the human immunoglobulins. Its original role was to protect against parasites. It's primarily found in allergic responses. IgA is found in breast milk. It protects the gastrointestinal tract. IgG is our memory. So when we look at it, we can see IgM comes up first. We build up the immune response, and now we have our IgG, which is the memory. So if we come in contact with it again, we're going to see a higher spike more quickly. We'll save these